Hello, listeners. This is Kat, and welcome back to Put Your Hands Up Podfics. This will be the continuation of Little Acts of Kindness. This will be Part 17, Chapter 17, entitled Bonding Quirk. The school day drew to a close, and Aizawa led him to the room Izuku had stumbled upon in his wanderings. Snipe was there, waiting. "Howdy," the man called out in greeting. "You ready for your first lesson?" He nodded even as Aizawa went to a nearby chair, sitting down and closing his eyes. "Good. I had Power Loader design a simple Glock for you," the shooting hero said, opening up the case he was holding. "Come on over, kid." He hesitantly made his way closer and looked at the gun. It was a dark green, almost black color. It was in a red holster that matched his supply belt color. The teacher started to go over the gun, showing him the ins and outs of it, how to take it apart and put it back together for cleaning purposes, how to load the magazine, how to put the magazine in the gun, and that, for this pistol, there was a back piece that he had to pull back before he could shoot the clip. Then Snipe showed him how to aim down the sights, and had him shoot holding the gun with both hands to increase the steadiness. The man had him stand in a certain position, then told him to pull the trigger gently, once. Izuku shot the pistol and felt how the gun jerked up slightly. He looked at the target to where he had been aiming and saw a little hole, a little up and to the left of where he had been aiming. "Not a bad first shot. Go ahead and shoot the rest of the clip." Izuku did, taking his time with each shot. After he finished the clip, the teacher had him remove the clip, then take apart the gun, having him clean it with the supplies and putting the gun back together. "You did good. Of course you need practice, so I would suggest having a session every Wednesday. We can take an hour for you to practice your shooting and using the gun, but it will be included in your hero costume gear now in case you need it." Izuku just nodded. He left with Aizawa. "So, what did you think?" the teacher asked. "It was interesting. A lot more difficult to aim than I thought it would be." "Do you think it will be something you will keep?" Izuku nodded. "It's useful." Aizawa gave a hum. "Good. Hopefully the rest of your class will start to think of items that can cover their weaknesses." The two continued through the hallways, on their way to Mike's car. They talked about heroes, and Aizawa made a grumbled complaint about some of the recent above-ground heroes who had made their debut recently. "Please, it'll be fun," Midnight's voice sounded from around the corner, clearly whining. Hizashi chuckled. "No, I'm not going to help you find a man for show. And before you ask me, I'm not going on a date with you, Nem." Ugh. There was a pause as the two got closer to the corner. "Well, how about we go on a double date then? I'm sure I could find a nice guy or girl to set you up with." "Nem, no, I'm not interested in finding someone to date." "Oh, would that mayhaps mean you're taken?" The voice hero spotted them and smiled. "Sho, little listener. How are you? Did you have fun, Midoriya?" he asked them, ignoring Midnight, who had been waggling her eyebrows. It was very informative," Izuku replied, glancing nervously at Midnight, who just smiled at him, giving a bright grin. Then she turned towards Shota. Her grin turned coy, playful, eyes bright with mischief. "Well, Shota, what about you? Since Mike won't go on a date with me, how about you?" "No," Aizawa responded flatly. "You two are no fun," she said, rolling her eyes. "No, I don't want you to find me a guy either," Aizawa added as she opened her mouth again. She closed her mouth and snickered. One of these days. Her eyes glinted as she looked between the two, and Izuku thought she looked knowing. "Go bother Tensei," Aizawa responded, waving a hand dismissively. "At least he knows how to loosen up and enjoy some quality time with a woman," she leered. "Though maybe he should teach his brother to loosen up some," she added with a wink. "We have to get going, Nem. We'll see you tomorrow." She waved a hand. "I'm going to go bug Vlad. I bet he would be kinky." The art teacher walked away, swaying her hips. "Why don't you tell Midnight Sensei about your relationship?" Izuku asked hesitantly. "If we tell her, then she would tell all the other teachers, and soon it would get out to the media, which we don't want," Aizawa answered. "She wouldn't tell them purposefully. But Nemuri likes to go out drinking, and she tends to be a chatterbox when drunk. Well, when she's not crying. Though, we have thought of telling them regardless. We haven't decided yet, really." "Yeah, plus it's amusing when she and Tensei sometimes joke about us acting like we're a married couple. Since it's true. Nemuri knows we'll say no, and likes to use it to badger us about our relationships, since she is under the belief we don't have any." "Miss Joke, on the other hand," Aizawa huffed. "Miss Joke, the smile hero?" "You've heard of her." Izuku nodded. She had a few minor articles on her. The group went to the car and got in as they conversed, the conversation switching from Miss Joke's unwanted perusal to how oftentimes heroes ended up with other heroes instead of civilians. They arrived at Izuku's apartment, and he entered his home. "See you tomorrow, little listener," Mike said, giving him finger guns as he turned and went back down. "See you," Izuku whispered in return, unheard by the voice hero. It was strange. When he first saw Mike at the entrance exam, he nearly had a panic attack as the man looked really similar to his English teacher. He couldn't help but be nervous around the teacher, wondering if the man was the same as his previous English teacher, but that couldn't be further from the truth. Mike acted way different, outgoing and cheerful, though the teacher also liked to mock people for being stupid. He was also caring, and could be quiet when he wanted to. Plus, he was married to Aizawa. Perhaps it wouldn't be so bad to trust Mike Sensei a bit more. A knocking woke him up. He groaned, looking at the time, frowning when he saw it was only 6:45. He got up and went to the door. Opening it, he saw Mike Sensei. "Sorry for the early wake-up call, but Recovery Girl said that her coworker was here, and that we should show up early, to get the test done before school starts." Okay, Izuku said, grinning, excited to know what his quirk was. He rushed back into the apartment, leaving the door open so Mike Sensei could let himself in. Izuku rushed to get ready, tucking on his pants around his cast and putting on his school uniform. He slowed down doing the tie, trying to remember the steps Mike Sensei had taught him. Once he finished, he went out and saw that Mike had heated up a Pop-Tart. "I grabbed this on the way out of my house for you. I hope you like them," the hero said, handing him the breakfast treat. Thank you," Izuku said as he ate the Pop-Tart. Then he was heading out after waking his mom up and telling her where he was going. He also made a bowl of cereal for her to eat. They drove to school, and Izuku shifted, excited to know exactly what his quirk was. Finally, after what seemed like forever, but was only 25 minutes, they arrived. He followed the two teachers to the nurse's office. "We seem to be visiting this place quite often," Aizawa dryly commented. "That's what happens when you get injured. You two should be more careful," Mike retorted. "Half of our visits haven't been because of our injuries. They've been about Midoriya's strange quirk." "Which we will be figuring out now," Recovery Girl spoke from behind them, causing Izuku to spin around in shock. He would have fallen if it hadn't been for Aizawa placing a hand on his shoulder, steadying him while Izuku repositioned his crutches. Next to Recovery Girl stood another old woman. She had short, silvery blue hair and gray eyes. "Let's go inside." The group of 5 went inside of the room, and Recovery Girl had him sit on the bed. The other old woman stepped forward. "My name is Kenshutsu Kuze. My quirk is called Quirk Detector. It allows me to find out everything about a person's quirk, what it does, how it activates, what sort of changes it makes to a person, stuff like that." Changes it makes to a person?" he questioned. "Yes, personality-wise. Some quirks make a person more aggressive, laid back, sometimes playful, tired, energetic, etc., etc. Now, I will need to take your hand, and this may feel weird or invasive. Please bear with it, though." He reluctantly held his hand out, and she took it, and he felt an almost cold, slimy sensation creeping up the inside of his veins. It was horrible, like there was ice inside of his body, and he shivered. After what felt like forever, the creeping feeling reached his heart, and he could feel it spread out, slowly making its way throughout his entire body. He whimpered, the sensation painfully cold. "Just a few more minutes, then the scan will be done," Kenshutsu said. About 5 more minutes passed before the slimy cold started to withdraw, a lot quicker than it had appeared. Gray eyes glowed silver. "All right, I have your quirk information." He stared at her, waiting for the answer. "Your quirk is a bonding copy quirk. When you trust a person, you end up bonding with them, and you copy their quirk. There are a few drawbacks to it. One is that you can't have 2 quirks that affect the same area. You have already copied Erasure, a quirk that affects your eyes. Anything that would change the eyes would not work, not unless the bond with Erasure breaks. But say the quirk uses eyesight, but doesn't change your eyes, then it would work. You also wouldn't be able to bond with your biological relatives, parents, grandparents, uncles, or aunts. Another drawback is one you probably face since your quirk developed when you were 6. Your quirk gives you trust issues, making it more difficult for you to trust people. Also, you can't trust a person just because you want their quirk. You have to actually trust a person, to know they will have your back, and that they won't hurt you." "So the reason his quirk never made itself known," Mike started, "was because he never trusted anyone. Yes." Mike grinned, yet his eyes were sad, even as he said, "Ah, that means the little listener trusts you, Eraser." Aizawa didn't say anything. but looking into his eyes, Izuku could see how the man's eyes had widened, looking almost as if he was surprised. Is there anything else we need to know about the quirk? Let's see. There does seem to be a limit to the amount of people he can trust and gain their quirk. But that number can change. It has gone up naturally over the years, and is currently 6. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem that he can trust people without forming a bond to them, but you can break a bond, which will result in the copied quirk being removed, or if you sever it before fully trusting them enough to develop the quirk, then it will never form. By doing this, it looks like you can trust the person, but you will never be able to copy their quirk again. How do I know if I bonded? You should be able to feel it. If you meditate, you could possibly feel the bonds and who they connect to. To sever it, I figure you would probably just imagine severing it. Go ahead and try. Izuku hesitated and closed his eyes. He started trying to meditate, but gave it up after a few minutes, not feeling comfortable. He opened his eyes again, looking towards Aizawa, unsure how to phrase his request. Can you 3 leave? Midoriya can't meditate with you guys around. Aizawa spoke flatly. Of course, no problem, little listener, Mike said, giving finger guns as he walked out, followed by Recovery Girl and Kenshutsu. Once more he closed his eyes, and this time, with only Aizawa being in the room, he found himself able to relax as he started trying to meditate, looking for these bonds the quirk doctor had told him about. After a few minutes he felt them, and could almost imagine seeing them as colored balls, glowing different colors and being different sizes. Aizawa's was warm and black, with a red center to it, the largest ball. Almost as big, but still a little bit smaller, was a yellow ball that almost seemed to vibrate, and Izuku recognized it as Mike's. A third ball that seemed to be the same size as Mike's was more glass-like, a see-through sort of blue, that Midoriya could feel belonged to All Might. Those were the 3 largest orbs. There were a few smaller ones belonging to his various classmates, the biggest of them being Uraraka and Ida, since the 2 had always spent a lot of time around him. He wasn't quite sure what to think of the 2, but they mostly left him alone, besides for walking with him and occasionally asking his opinion. Out of all of them, though, only Aizawa's had a sort of line he could feel coming out of it. Mike's did have a sort of tendril feeling that seemed to be coming away for a moment before retreating back to the orb, and there was no tendril at all from All Might. After he finished feeling the orbs, he opened his eyes. That was really strange, he said to Aizawa, who gave a hum. Quirks can be very strange. Do you want me to call the others back in? Izuku nodded, and Aizawa walked over and kicked the door with his foot, the door soon opening, and the 3 others came back in. Did you find the bonds? Kenshutsu questioned. Yes. Good. I do believe that's all the relevant information. I'll go write up everything and send Recovery Girl an email in case I forgot to mention something. Have a good day, the woman said, turning and walking out of the room. It does seem like it would be safe for you to use a razor, dearie. Just be careful when using it, Recovery Girl said. Izuku nodded. Well, let's head to the classroom, Midoriya. We can discuss your quirk there and what you want to do with it. All right, Izuku agreed. With that, the 3 went towards 1A. All right, listeners, this concludes Chapter 17 of Little Acts of Kindness. Finally, some clarification on what exactly it is for Izuku's quirk. Let me know your thoughts and reactions to this one. Chapter 18 will be up next, and as always, thank you so much for listening.